Guys, welcome back to another weekly watch list. Last week, we again discussed this chart that we broke the downtrend, right? Any pullback was likely going to move higher, and we had a beautiful move to the upside. So now, again, given the massive move, right, I think we had almost, if you discard the drawdown, we had almost a 3.5% week, right? And from the lows, it was almost 4.5%. So the market is kind of overheated. 5%. All right, the market is kind of overheated at these levels, right? So I have a number of scenarios, right, that I am watching. And again, even if we do gap up, right, it would just make a short more high probability occurrence. Again, so when I say short, I want to kind of discuss what I see, right, across various scenarios. Number one, on the lower time frame, you can see that we are perpetually bouncing between these two structures that are holding as support and resistance, right? And this top of the line is resistance. So I do expect, right, any move over this, right, most likely going to gap down. But even if we do, it's likely just finishing out this wave 3, right? And we're going to come down for this wave 4. So, and now I'm going to discuss like the two different wave 4s that I do see, right? Number one is this obviously 406, 407 area, right? That's likely to hold a support, which again, if I draw the fib from the top of this to the bottom of this, you can see it's pretty much, right, the inverse 0.618. So I'm looking to see, again, scenario number one, right? When we pull back, are we going to hold 407, right, for one more move to the upside? I'd say 417 to 420 is the max I see this fifth wave going, right? That's scenario number one. Number two, what I am looking at is a bigger wave 3, right? What I showed you was a minor wave 3 inside the C wave, right? So this is likely going to be a quick dip and rip versus this scenario, right, which obviously forecasts a bigger wave 3, in which case I would be looking to see if we, come down and hold 400 to 398. That's kind of the area I'm looking to see. If we do pull back, like, will this pull back again? It can still stop at 405 fib, right? But I think the higher likelihood, if we are in a bigger wave 4, is that we come down to retest these two key levels, right, between 400 and 398. So this is a bigger wave 3 that I am watching as well. I mean, bigger wave 4. The key difference, as you can see, is this is a smaller wave 4 pullback. And again, this is a larger wave 4 pullback. And even in a wave 4, you will tend to move down, right? Have a small bounce before you come down. So the same would apply for that as well, right? So this is kind of what I'm watching. And alternatively, right, given that we are at weekly supply, right, any gap into this, right, would still have to be considered a possibility that this entire wave could have already ended. Here, I'm looking for one more move to the upside because I feel like a lot of charts are incomplete and are still due for run. But I don't disregard the possibility that we are in the supply and we could have this B wave lower before we move higher for the C wave. So these are kind of the three probabilities I'm monitoring. This one obviously is the most bearish, where from here or in the supply would likely move to the downside, versus in these I'm just looking for a retrace before we move higher, or a retrace before we move higher, right? On Qs, you can see that again we are in the supply, right, versus S&P is approaching supply. The QQQ is already at supply, and if I fib, right, the top, the all-time highs to the most recent lows, you can see the 0.618 fib that I've been mentioning, we closed right on that fib, right? So the wave 4 I've drawn here is in accordance with this chart, right? I'm looking to see if we do have a larger pullback, right? Because of where we are, this is a critical zone. I feel like bears could push us lower than this smaller wave 4 that I have highlighted, but the same would hold for QQQ as well, right? If we were to pull back for a smaller move, it will look something like this, right? On the smaller time frame, if I had to draw it out, this would be my 1, 2. This is my 3, 4, 5 in a bigger, right? This entire thing was my 1, 2. This is my 3. We would just dip to about 310, right? 310 is the smaller wave 4 before the bigger wave 5, and the bigger wave 4 I'd be looking for around 300 to 302. So those are the key differences between the minor and smaller waves, right? You can see again, bigger picture, we knew that we were going to rally based on the fact that we did break out of this channel, right? We were making a series of higher lows. So a dip to this point was a high probability move in the supply. Now we're at supply. So we kind of have to see, what's next. And as for IWM, bigger picture, we know, again, this purple trend line, right? Once we broke this blue channel, we had a large downtrend. This pink, not purple, downtrend line was holding its resistance each time. IWM could not break over it. And surprisingly, you can see that in this rally, right before FOMC, we were in this pennant. I pointed that out in Discord, and then we had this massive rally to the upside. So now I'm looking to see if this holds, right? I'm thinking the way forward that I have drawn for all these stocks, right? I think a retest, right? Or try to retest this level before a move, right? For IWM, you can see this. If I go to the weekly chart on IWM, you'll be able to see that this is previous demand zone, new supply, right? I'm looking for a move into supply. So I do feel like a little bit of pullback or retest of this zone, right? May not have to go this deep, but a little pullback before we move into 192s, before the larger B wave is warranted, right? So this is kind of what I'm watching for IWM, but I would be more careful shorting this given that it's broken a large downtrend, right? And it's like any small dip could get bought up easily by bulls because of this. So yeah, that's what I have for IWM. So with that being said, we can look at DIA as well, right? I don't have this charted. I can chart it for you right now. So again, this was our A wave. This was our B wave, right? Massive C wave to the downside. And then we had, again, a 1, 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5 down, right? Which is why we had an ABC move to the upside, where again, this is our A, this is our B, we're in the C wave, right? In the C wave, again, like the rest of the indexes, we're either going to have a smaller wave 3 or a smaller wave 4 or a larger wave 4. I'm of the opinion we likely, could retest this 320 before, again, we're approaching supply, right? So we could, again, as I mentioned, wave 3 could extend till Monday, a gap in Monday, which is make it a higher probability short, right? But yeah, I am looking for that wave for pullback before one more move to the upside. So yeah, this is what I have for Dow. So a lot of these charts, I am aligned on my outlook, right? And I'm just deferring between various scenarios, right? Here, a smaller wave 4 for a bigger wave 5. Here, I have close to a top, or short-term top being in before I feel like we retest a lower demand zone before the next push higher, right? And then here, obviously, I'm looking at a larger wave 4. So yeah, those are all the 3 scenarios I wanted to go over. I hope that was helpful. With that being said, we can look at this week's watch list, right? The first one I have is Ford, right? Ford had a really nice earnings run, right? And now you can see we pretty much, if I go to the daily chart, right, you can see if I fibbed it from we bounced off the 0.5 fib from the COVID lows, right? But I want to show you the reverse fib, right? You can see, again, obviously this challenge break led to a large downfall. This was a demand zone. You guys all know that. So I just want to show you that if I fibbed it, right, from the top of this to the most recent low, we're, again, same as QQQ, sitting at the 0.618 fib. So I feel that this could act as a hindrance, right? You can see, again, this is channeling up, down, and we're hovering over the channel. So I feel like a retest, right? This wave 4, wave 5 I've been talking about in this videos. I feel like we could see the same for Ford, right? A retest, given that it is extended, right? If I go to the MACD on the lower time frame, you can see on the 30-minute chart, even though we're making new highs, the indicators are making lower highs, right? Which means there is negative divergence building, right? So I feel like Ford could make a good downside short, again, for a brief pullback, right? May not last more than a day or two, but yeah, a $1 moving forward is like 6% for it. So yeah, it's kind of what I'm watching, a pullback to these levels. So you can see I have Ford puts below 14.5 with 13.7 as target, right? And I would likely sell my puts here and look to see if we do have a wave 5 to the upside. Again, if the wave A is in, like I discussed, the most bearish scenario, then I would, again, watch to see if this channel breaks, retest, and if it fails, then I again short it again to the downside. So that's what an ultra bear version would look like. So this is what I have for Ford, right? Bearish divergence building. I think it can make a good put play. Again, Nvidia, 4-hour chart, you can see have a similar idea building, and I know AMD does report, and for AMD as well, right? Bigger picture, support. We were bullish as hell here. This is resistance. It retested and it broke out, right? Same as IWM. I'm looking for some kind of retest, right? I feel like right before earnings, right? A couple of bloody days could I mean, AMD is going to be it. A majority of what needs to be considered is the most recent move, earnings move priced in by this run up here, right? So I feel like a pullback would make it a higher probability play to the upside, right? And that's the reason I have Nvidia puts it. I feel like it could be a good sympathy, as well as the fact that, again, Nvidia, this area is supply, right? For our, I'm sorry, this is the wrong supply. Again, this is supply, right? Resistance, resistance, resistance. Briefly try to stay over it, failed, right? Let's go to the daily chart on Nvidia. You can see on Nvidia as well that this area here, right? Daily supply zone, right? It briefly tried to stay over the supply zone and failed. So that's the reason, right? I feel like Nvidia could personally sell off for like a day or two, right, into AMD earnings, try to retest like the lower levels of 170, right, before you have this fifth wave to the upside. So that's the reason I have Nvidia put on there as well, right? The next one I have is Match. So Match is a little more interesting. It does have earnings coming up, right? So I'm looking to see if Match, right, has the pre-earning sell-off, right, before it takes off for this wave C on earnings. Again, fundamentally, I'm not very bullish, but the chart, right, if I go to the weekly time frame, you can see this level is being used to support, right? This is all the way from 2017, again 2018 dip, again the March of 2020 dip, right? And again you have 2022, right? So at these levels, I'm watching to see, again, you can see over the last few weeks, right, it has not participated in the earnings run up. You can see that we had, right, if I remove this, you can see that we kind of had not an inside, we had an inside week this week, right? And you can see the volume is kind of waning, right? And you can kind of draw this falling wedge pattern on Match as well. So that's the reason I'm intrigued by Match, right? No one's really talking about it. But if you look at this, you can see the weekly actually closed above this breakout, right? So I feel like we could retest like a demand zone here, right? This trend line at 68. If we do before earnings, I feel like it could be a pretty decent trade to the upside, right? Again, it's just it personally over the next few months, I'm bullish on Match moving higher, right? But I can't guarantee earnings, but it definitely has my interest for earnings, right? Given how well Bumble, again, last earnings, you can see the Bumble had a nice move to the upside. And the reason Match is lagging is because the CEO stepped down, right? And this has a lot to do with the negative sentiment in their stock, but I really like this price action. It was the same price action PayPal had, right? This falling wedge I pointed out, and then you can see the massive move it had to the upside. So that's the reason Match interests me. Again, I do think it will go down for a few days before it goes higher for this wave C. So that's the reason I have Match on this week's watch list. The next stock that I have is Tilray. And again, the reason for that is if I go to the weekly chart on Tilray, right, you can see we've been sideways all the way from June, right, into August. So that's like 2 months of consolidation. Again, this doesn't mean we can't break down, right? We can definitely break down or break up. So yeah, the bull trigger, again, if we break this consolidation, this is what Tesla did, right? And I pointed that out a week ago, right? We were sideways for so long, had a massive move to the upside. And that's why I think Tilray can do the same as well, right? If we break this 3.72, I think, again, bigger picture, this is the downtrend channel on Tilray, right? I feel like we could go retest like $5, which is like a lot for like a $3 stock. That's like a 50% move. Again, I would be bearish if it broke $3 and we move to the downside, right? Again, so weekly chart Tilray is kind of appetizing. Again, it could just stay inside this like consolidation for another few weeks, right? There's nothing to say it's going to break out. But on the 30-minute, right, you can see that it did have a large downside move and it got bought up, right? So that's the reason I have to run this week's watch list till it breaks over 3.7. Personally would not touch it because high probability is it could reject and come back in, kind of like what Neo did, right? Just been staying in this consolidation and I don't want you guys to get caught in that. So again, personally, just wait for it to break down, right? And kind of see how we move. Break up, not break down, sorry. I mean, either way, it should provide a good move, but this looks like a nice consolidation for a large move up or down. So that's the reason I have Tilray on this week's watch list. Next one I have is CRM, right? You can see, again, it had it inside week, so it's likely to make a large move up or down next week, right? Again, I feel like it could, if I do anticipate pullback, CRM could be one of the factors of that, right? So it could come down like this and do something like that. That's why I personally would wait, right? Wait for it to break this weekly resistance level, and again you can see it also would break this downward channel, so that's where I have my alerts set at 186. If it breaks 186, I think it should be able to test 200 easily. Otherwise, right, as long as it remains in this channel, it could just consolidate till earnings in this channel before it moves up. So that's why I have CRM on this week's watch list if it does try to break up, right? Let's look at PayPal again. So PayPal is similar to what I had for Ford and Nvidia, right? I know it has earnings, but again, you can see this is a weekly supply level, right? On a daily supply level on the daily chart, you can see this is resistance, right? And it does have a gap to fill here. So before earnings, I feel like this gap could act as a magnet. We come to retest about 80, 85 before it pushes to 97. So yeah, that's why I have this week's watch list. PayPal is the last one. I hope this helps. I hope you have a great week. Thank you so much.